Hi, I'm Ashley.
And I'm Chris, and this is Business by the Books.
Welcome to the Business by the Books podcast, where we believe that leaders are readers, and if you're not reading, you're really not leading. This is episode 2. We survived to episode 2, which is super exciting. And this episode's book is Ed F. Kruse of Bluebell Creameries, and it's by Dorothy McLeod MacInerney, and it was written in 2016, so it's a relatively new book. And it's actually one, did I get it for you for Father's Day?
Yeah, no, it was for my 50th birthday.
50th birthday,
So
yes.
it'd be 2018.
Yes, yeah. The Texas A&M Barnes & Noble was selling it, and I saw it. And we're a Texas family, and we love Bluebell. So what better?
We eat a lot of Bluebell.
Yes,
and
yes.
We've even got some Bluebell.
Yes, we're going to celebrate this episode with some Bluebell.
So what'd you get? What?
You bought me.
I did.
You bought me bride's cake, which is fitting because I'm getting married in 2 months at the filming of this episode. Mm-hmm. And you got what?
Butter pecan.
Perfect. The nice thing about bride's cake is that, or just wedding cake in general, is that it is almond flavored, and my fiance is allergic to almonds, so I get more to myself. So It's quite exciting. So I've never actually had the bride's cake before.
Is it good?
Yeah. That was really good.
Well, the butter pecan's good, which is why I got it.
We've always enjoyed the butter pecan. Mm-hmm. What is your official favorite flavor of Bluebell?
I like vanilla, to be honest with you.
I know, vanilla is really good.
I like cookies and cream. Mm-hmm. I like, obviously, butter pecan.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite's just good old vanilla.
Yeah. What's funny, though, about the vanilla, I actually prefer, I think it's the reduced sugar. The light vanilla. And it's weird, but the reason why is because we are Bluebell experts. But the thing is, with the original vanilla, it's amazing and it's really good. But like a lot of ice cream, it actually is so thick and rich that it leaves like a weird aftertaste.
Yep.
And so that's why I actually like the light, because it doesn't leave that same flavor. But this is really good. I actually really enjoy this.
I'm going to stop eating because I could eat the whole thing.
I know, same. Yeah. All right, sweet. So this is Mr. Ed F. Kruse. And you want to share a little, obviously you were the one that read the book. And so you want to share a little bit about who he is and why he's important.
So if you remember in our kind of opening, we talked about we got different categories, and this falls within the biographies and history. Yeah. And with us both being Aggies and living in Texas, most people from Texas know about Bluebell.
Yeah.
And actually around the country, there's a lot of people that eat Bluebell.
Sorry for those of you who do not. You're missing out.
It's really good. But anyway, Mr. Kruse, his family basically started Bluebell, and we're kind of the early founders. And he graduated from A&M in 1949, and quickly got a degree in the dairy industry, and so he started working, and then he moved to I think Dallas-Fort Worth area, and started selling ice cream for a competitor to Bluebell. But at that time, Bluebell was relatively small. And his father got really sick, and it's really kind of a moving story. His father got sick, and I think his dad passed away in 1951. Oh, wow. So within a couple of years, just think about a couple of years from now, in your position running a company.
Please don't die.
Yeah.
We're going to be stranded and lost if
so I'm not planning on that, but it's a really neat story, because it just kind of, the whole Bluebell history that we really know about, Mr. Kruse was the president of it. And so it's a real heartwarming story. And, Dorothy wrote the book, and she did a really good job just kind of pulling out a lot of facts. And the really sad part is that Mr. Kruse passed away right before he passed away in 2015, and it was published in 2016. Yeah. So I'm sure he was very involved in putting all the material together and those kind of things. But I talked about in the introduction that biographies are very important. And I encourage everybody at least once a year to read a biography, because it helps you realize that every successful person, and Mr. Kruse was extremely successful. It's got an appendix and just lists all the awards that he had. You remember those and you see those on the wall, but you don't remember the hardships, that he went through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and something that I love is we grew up every summer going to the Bluebell factory.
When y'all were little, it was kind of a big deal.
It was, it was a big deal. It was usually every summer, every other summer, we would make a trip out to Brenham, Texas, which is not far from here. Yeah. And we would go do a tour of the Bluebell Creameries, and it was so much fun. And it's cool thinking about, of course, it was fun as a little kid to see the ice cream being made because that was all we ate for dessert. But just thinking about, there's people behind that. And there was, specifically with Mr. Kruse, there was one man who really drove it home, who really was able to get it to where it is now.
And a real visionary, as well.
Yeah.
Is it wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for him.
Yeah. So, wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool. So out of, I guess, how long was the read? Was it an easy read?
It was a relatively easy read.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember, you got it for me, and we went to Dallas. To watch the Aggies play Arkansas. I was also supposed to we won't give all the details. I was also supposed to ride in the P-51. If you remember, the pilot didn't show up, so that was kind of sad. And A&M didn't play really good. They beat Arkansas, but it was kind of a pathetic game. Yeah. So anyway, but the book was good, and I got to read a lot of it on the way home. So it was a relatively easy read. It's kind of a typical biography. It tells a story about someone's life. But I think, to me, it was a great story about a great man. Mm-hmm. And one of the things, we've got kind of our outline of things that we always talk about. He loved quotes. And,
that was something.
And you know how I love quotes.
He loves quotes. He quotes just anything and everybody. And so the fact that there was a gentleman who was known for his quotes. Yep. And they were called
Edisms.
Mr. Ed had a lot of Edisms, and I love that.
And they even had numbers. And so, matter of fact, every chapter had an Edism, and there were and then there's a whole appendix that's got Edisms. And one of my favorite Edisms is, if you can, and there's an appendix 1 and 2, and he said, if you can do some good, do it now. And so it's one of those things is don't delay. If you can do something good, don't postpone it. Because usually what happens is, if you have good intentions and you don't act on it, what do? You forget about it. And so anyway, I think that's pretty good advice. But he obviously was very practical, and he really understood people, which I think is a heartwarming part of the story, because as he began to become successful, he gave back. Matter of fact, the baseball field at A&M is called Bluebell. So he gave money. He was also an athlete. He was a letterman at A&M. I think he swam. So anyway, it's just a great story about someone that you could know personally. That he could have lived in our community. We could have had a relationship with him. And it's not very often when you meet people like that someone writes a book.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. You obviously, we love Bluebell. Bluebell is just a big deal in Texas.
I'm going to keep eating.
Yes, I know. It's just too good. So with that, Bluebell has, just by being an ice cream, has had such an impact on our lives. But from a business standpoint, as a man, as a businessman, how do you think a lot of the Edisms, or the way that he acted and encouraged and built people up, how does that translate? How does that apply? Yep. In other words, to
one of the things I was really inspired by was that he put people first.
Yeah.
And business was critically important, but during hard times, they took care of people, and they took care of people in the Brenham community. And so I think that's just a great example of putting people first in your business. And a lot of times there's a tendency when you run a business to put the almighty dollar first.
Yeah.
And the purpose of business is to generate revenue. I'm not going to argue against that, but it's so much easier to grow a profitable business when you take care of your employees, and then the community really feels that presence. And one of the things actually I really enjoyed about this book is, after you read a book like this, it makes you want to be a better person, because you realize that good guys do finish first. Sometimes our media says that the good people finish last.
Yeah.
But I think Mr. Kruse is a great example. He was also, he talked a lot about, the book talked a lot about him being a strong Christian, and so that was super important to him. So to me, it's kind of cool to think about that. He's obviously with Christ today, and that was a big part of his life. And I think he wasn't just someone who talked about it or went to church on Sunday. It was just part of his life, which also inspired me as well.
Yeah. Well, and I know that the current CEO of Bluebell is also a Christian.
Yep.
He hopefully may or may not come and speak at my organization next year. And I'm like, oh, can you bring some Bluebell too? But yeah, no, I think through all of that, it's definitely very obvious. And we've known people who have worked at Bluebell, and they are so sweet and so kind. And there's obviously a culture that is very supportive and encouraging of one another. One of my favorite traditions, I guess, at Bluebell is they kind of have the saying that, like, eat all you want. Yeah. Kind of. And so all the employees literally can go and eat as much of the ice cream as they want.
Their tagline used to be, it might have been the 1980s, is that we eat all we can and we give the rest away. Something like that.
Exactly.
Well, something you kind of hit on too is, I think about all of the birthday parties that we've had and all the graduate, like you had a graduation party. It's like almost every event that we have has Bluebell. In matter of fact, there's a period of time where Bluebell, they had some issues and they had to kind of shut down for a period of time, and your mommy freaked out because it's like, we can't have an event without Bluebell. And matter of fact, she went and bought a bunch of Bluebell containers. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. Oh, and it was, I know after they came back, people started making t-shirts that said, "I survived the Bluebell famine," because it's such a big deal here. It's a culture thing, and it's funny going to other states, or and it's mainly prevalent in Texas, and it's a big deal in Texas. But going to other states that don't have it, it's funny interacting with them because they don't get the obsession. It's like us with H-E-B or Whataburger or like Texas brands. There's Texas staples.
Dairy Queen. Of course, Dairy Queen's all over the place.
Yeah. But there are like Texas staples that are so important to the Texas culture, and Bluebell is one of them for sure. And what's fun too is and of course, throughout the years, all the different companies have made so many different flavors, but with Bluebell, there really is a flavor for every single different occasion, right? Yep. They have bride's cake. Which
I had never seen.
Yeah, they have like a red velvet cake. They have birthday cake.
They had that there.
Yeah, of course. And they have like all these different flavors, and it's so fun and so versatile. And I mean, did the book talk about specifically, aside from Mr. Kruse himself, kind of operations within Bluebell at all, or did it?
Yeah, and one of the things they did a good job talking about was kind of the expansion of Bluebell. Yeah. That started in Brenham. And matter of fact, there's an appendix that lists all the really different facilities around the country where they make ice cream.
Yeah, because I know they added more.
Yeah, and that's a sign of a good business, right? Yeah. I mean, a good business, kind of slowly grows, but a great business kind of franchises itself. It's like, okay, they replicate themselves, and it makes it easier to distribute ice cream. If you got a facility in Colorado, for example, you can distribute locally. It's kind of hard to ship, and they do it, but it's so much easier to ship locally. And so I think that was probably part of Mr. Kruse's vision as well. Yeah. Is really expansion, kind of through the South.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet. Well, we got through this book pretty fast.
We did.
So I guess kind of what are any final thoughts and your main call to action for our listeners?
Yeah, I think a couple things. The edisms were good. Yeah. I also think it's good to memorize things. Yeah. I think it's just we talked about the discipline of reading. I also think it's good to be disciplined and memorize things. And he had some good edisms. And I think that it's not that they're not just pithy quotes, but they're things that are very practical in terms of principles that you can live by. But as I said, I think the thing that probably impacted me the most was just to have a long view. He became president and or effectively the leader in 1951. I think he became CEO in 1968. But through that entire time period, he's slowly growing. He's growing, and the organization's growing with him, and just have a long-term perspective. So he was in basically a leadership position for probably 50 years. Yeah. I mean, that's mind-boggling to think about.
I cannot think of a modern-day CEO that.
No,
because I mean the longest one I can think of off the bat is maybe Bob Iger, who was over Disney for 15 years.
Well, I think the average, I had to memorize something a few years ago, but I think the average tenure is like 3 years for a CEO, which is crazy.
Yeah, no,
I mean it's really fast. Well, because it's so intense. Yeah. So for him, I mean I'm 51, so for almost the length of my entire life, he would have been basically leading Bluebell. Yeah. And that's mind-boggling. You can't be a great person. I mean, you have to be a great person in order to do that. You can't be someone who's all about yourself and lead for that extended period of time.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
So thanks for getting it for me.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this is just like so Texas. I have to. There's even a picture of him on the back with
President Bush.
Yeah, with President H.W. Bush. So I love that. Anyways, sweet. Well, man, if you end up getting this book or trying Bluebell for the first time anytime soon, let us know. Yeah, you can reach us at our Instagram, Business by the Books. And yeah, man, this was a fun episode. There's not every.
And not very often we get to eat ice cream.
I know. I was gonna say I eat ice cream all the time, but it's not every podcast episode that we will get to eat ice cream for sure.
This is probably it.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for listening so much. And you want to close us out with our saying?
I do.
Yes.
And we talked about memorizing. You need to memorize this, okay? So leaders are readers, and if you're not reading, you're not leading.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, thank you guys for listening so much, and we will talk to you in the next episode. Bye.
Thanks.